9 out of 10 working at Freddy's. Working at Freddy's would suck. Like, if we're in so much danger, why are we staying for the 5 nights? Okay, do we need a job that bad? Putting like the lore reasons aside, right? But the real question is, other than that, how is Fazbear Entertainment even allowed to have employees in an environment like this? Already working there, you would have to deal with the possibility of a Springlock failure, and Henry William just letting the people who run your business and making them money wear the suits is stupid, okay? Like, put this on or you're fired, but don't end up dying from robotic parts replacing your internal organs in the hot suits that fail with moisture. Like, seriously? Want to talk about health and safety? What about the having actual corpses stuffed into animatronic suits that are in front of how many kids every single day? Especially when one of them is known for loving pizza and in the VR game is shown in her FNAF 1 form to actually be shoving pizza into the various joints of her body. Plus, 5 nights of animatronics trying to kill me? Yeah, no thanks, okay? I'm glad you fired me at the end of it, but honestly, I'd have quit as soon as, like, the first phone call ended. No thanks. Phone guy's like, oh, they might move? No, I'm done. In at 9, Scooped. Now, I know you may be mad and think that this is a stupid point, but hear me out, okay? The Scooper may seem like a weird but normal thing, at least by FNAF standards at first, but with the blueprint revealing how this thing actually works, it's an incredible piece of technology that is far worse than a Springlock suit. It can inject whatever it ends up scooping with Remnant, which is a molten metal possessed by souls, and assuming that my theory about Michael being a robot was wrong, keeping a person alive after removing their insides. It's capable of doing that, replacing their parts with robot parts, and then having those robotic parts leave the body but still have the person be alive. In essence, it makes that person just a walking case of flesh that is still somehow able to stand up on its own. Unless it didn't actually remove anything and it just like opened him up, but then again, it would still require some serious juice to keep him alive after that. That's pretty damn impressive, and it's also terrifying. I'd rather have the instant death of a Springlock suit than having my bones replaced with robotic ones. Yeah, no thanks. At least while I'm awake. Replace my bones with metal ones when I'm asleep, so I can just like... In at 8, Grabbed. Elizabeth Afton getting grabbed by Baby is one of the most terrifying moments in the series. Possibly because Crying Child saw it, which would explain the stomach mouths on the nightmare animatronics. However, if we were to like see this from Crying Child's perspective, whether that detail is canon or not, if we saw it from his perspective, oh my freaking god, that would be so utterly terrifying. I would stand still. I wouldn't know what to do. Okay, how do you explain why a kid is like hiding in the bushes while his sister is getting grabbed by an animatronic claw? Okay, you don't. She was just trying to get ice cream. It's horrible. It's shocking. God, especially considering that Elizabeth ends up turning into an absolute psychopath after this, okay? Like, Elizabeth is nuts. But still, like, I don't know. It's that thought of just watching someone get grabbed. Like, sure, maybe for Elizabeth it wasn't that bad because, you know, she kind of was crazy apparently, but still, like, watching it happen, that's just f***ed up. That's a horrible thing to watch happen. It's worse than a Springlock, definitely.
Number 7, The Amazing Escape. William Afton in the books is much more lucky, or perhaps just more brilliant than his video game counterpart. At least when it comes to dodging Springlocks somehow. Like in the games, he ends up getting Springlocked, but instead of being killed by this experience, he miraculously survives, seeming to somehow pull a Harry Houdini and just escape that. While Charlie activates the Springlocks in the suit he's wearing at the end of the novel 5 Nights at Freddy's The Silver Eyes, we learn in the next book, The Twisted Ones, that the blood found in the scene ends up being analyzed in a lab and found to be fake blood. Finally, in the 4th closet, it is confirmed that William Afton, while harmed, miraculously survived being Springlocked. I don't know how this is possible, but it's a thing that happened. Pretty impressive considering in most other cases, it's pretty much a death sentence. Number 6, triggered by wriggling off mini arenas. This is probably my favorite consequence when it comes to the Springlocks malfunctioning. Likely because you yourself actually get to experience failure in a way. But obviously not in real life because that would be awful and horrible and extremely painful. Instead, you experience it in game. So although you can't feel it, you can't imagine what it would feel like, which honestly is also terrifying trying to do. This time when the Springlocks fail, it is as a result of your movement. You are the one who must wriggle to shake off the mini Renas, which are climbing up the suit and attempting to kinda climb into it with you. If this happens enough times, the mini Rena's jump scare will get triggered, implying your death by mini Renas. However, if you also wriggle too much to keep them off you, without winding the Springlocks back up enough, you will trigger the Springlocks release, which will also result in your death by being impaled by suit parts which are released by those Springlocks. Yikes. Number 5. The fate of Shadow Freddy. Shadow Freddy is thought by some, in regards to lore, to have been a possible Springlock victim. The consequences of this employee's Springlock failure would be, of course, that they died. That's right, people believe that Shadow Freddy, who appears to be somewhat ghostly in nature, is actually the spirit of a former Freddy's employee, who died while wearing a Springlock Freddy suit. It's believed that for one reason or another, the suit malfunctioned, murdering its wearer. As a result, Shadow Freddy was born to haunt its former workplace, and was also likely one of the reasons that Springlock suits stopped being used, at least temporarily. Although apparently not soon enough, as there were other failures that occurred possibly even after this one. Number 4. The fate of RWQFSFASXC. Some believe that not only is Shadow Freddy a victim of the Springlocks failing, but so is the shadowy figure of RWQFSFASXC. They believe that this shadowy Bonnie was another employee who, instead of being killed by the Springlock Freddy suit, met their end while inside the Springlock Bonnie suit, which also failed. My question is, if these employees happen to both die as a result of wearing and using the Springlock suits and the suits malfunctioning, did they die on the same day? Because if not, why would you ever continue to use these suits as a company? And why would you ever, as an employee, agree to get in another one? Unless one of them was hired after the other one and like no one told them about what happened to the last person to put on one of those suits? Still, legal liability right there. Like, my alarms are going off for like lawsuits. Of course, this was only a theory anyways, and actually one that Scott claimed was incorrect in regards to the true origins of both Shadow Freddy and RWQFSFASXC.
And at 3, Henry Emily. I get that Springlock failures suck, but even the good guys in this series are kinda trash. FNAF 6 was supposed to be the end of the Afton story. That's what Henry set out to do in that game. Make sure that nobody remembered what happened there despite the parents of the victims remembering and the various other news sources covering it. However, the dumbass figured that the first fire didn't work, so a second one is definitely going to. And the fact that he was so confident in this plan for whatever reason that he actually let himself die in the process to make sure that nobody remembered what happened is dumb. Like I said, dude, even if Henry and William and his kids are dead, the parents of the victims still know. And as we learned in Security Breach, there are other parents who remember too, citing the missing children from the Pizzaplex as happening again, which means they know it happened before. Maybe if Henry had some balls, William wouldn't have been able to possess Vanny and come back yet again to wreak even more havoc, or I don't know, maybe everything would have been fine. The Pizzaplex missing children are a direct result of Henry being worse than a Springlock failure, and you can't tell me any different. Springlock failures have only resulted in one canonical death in the series, or death, but Henry has resulted in a lot more. But ultimately, and number 2, being an Afton. Okay, look, Springlock failures are horrible. Okay, yes, and yes, William is a horrible person, but being just an Afton in this universe must be the worst thing ever. It's like the worst spawn point in existence, because every Afton has been subjected to a horrible fate. It's like if Sean Bean is cast to play a character, you know that they're going to die. It's that, but if you're an Afton, you're going to suffer a horrible fate. Okay, let's go through the list, shall we? Here we go. William, Springlocked, possessed, forced to suffer for like 60 years at least. Charlotte, grabbed by Baby, going on to possess the animatronic, then joins a group of other animatronics that crawl inside of her big brother to escape an underground facility, and then gets kicked out of the greater collective, and then goes on to try to impress her father that caused her death in the first place by creating the robot that killed her. Talk about daddy issues. Then we have Crying Child, who we don't even know this kid's name. He watched his sister get crushed, he got crushed by a robot, and then he goes on to possess his brother and makes him suffer before realizing that it's not his fault. Then, speaking of the brother Michael, he blamed himself for killing his brother. He then spent his whole life trying to undo his father's horrible acts, and he himself was scooped in stuff full of robot parts, including his sister, which is again a whole other issue. He was made into a purple bruised man that everyone was scared of, and he was finally burnt to death in FNAF 6 by Henry without even being given the option to survive. So yeah, being an Afton is cursed. And that's not even talking about how Gregory or Vanessa could be Aftons. And finally, in at number 1, the lore. Oh, the worst thing about FNAF is the lore. Yeah, having to try to figure it out or even think about it or try to give it any coherent links is probably the most horrific thing that you can try to attempt in regards to the series, yes, but also literally at all. Do not try this, please. I get messages on Instagram saying like, oh, I have a FNAF theory and I was hoping we could talk about it. Like, I appreciate that you want to talk to me about it as opposed to like Matt Pat or someone famous, maybe because I'm more likely to reply because I'm not famous. But like, the best advice that I can give to you is if you value any shred of your sanity, do not try this. Do not attempt to put any shred of logic into FNAF. It will break you. Okay, do you think that I wanted to do this? Do you think that I planned on doing this for 2 years? No! I read one comment that said I see a FNAF in the thumbnail and I click, and it drove me so far into the madness that I'm basically the Joker of the FNAF community. People don't like me because I made a joke video about the worst FNAF fan games that included games that people loved, and now it's on the goddamn YouTuber wiki as a controversy. People get mad at you for misgendering fictional robots. They're robots and not real. People were furious with the Pop Goes creator because of that, and I'm like, what? Dude, just don't do it, okay? I'm not gatekeeping. I'm genuinely trying to help you. I want you to be okay, so please save yourself from the toxicity and let my heart and soul be the one to suffer all of this torture, and I will keep doing so. And at 10, the Twisted Ones. Okay, the Twisted Ones certainly do seem to live up to their name. The Twisted Animatronics are these horribly disfigured creatures that get no love from their mothers like an ugly duckling. The thing is though, these don't go into swans. Instead, they use another bit of tech that I'll talk about later to disguise themselves. They also dig deep into the ground and then wait until the middle of the night to crawl out and take kids who wander away from their mommies. It legit sounds like an urban legend that parents would tell their kids to make sure that they come home before dark. I mean, I don't really know what else to say. That's definitely far more terrifying than a Springlock failure. At least, like, you choose if you are in a Springlock suit or not. But with this, it's just like a luck of the draw kind of thing. And I've only been to a casino once. I walked out $30 richer. And at 9, Lonely Freddy. Lonely Freddy already in a way kind of has like a parallel in our world, kind of. It's like the trope where someone like becomes your friend and then starts slowly morphing into you and then tries to take over your life. I don't know, that's a thing, right? Have people talked about that? Maybe it's just in movies, or maybe I dreamt about it ages ago. I can't really remember, because you know, my memory's great. But also, just plain old identity theft is a thing in the real world, and that's basically what Lonely Freddy is. Lonely Freddies were introduced in the Fazbear Frights books and are basically meant to like explain what Psychic Friend Fredbear was, or maybe are possibly supposed to be a way of what it could be. But basically, it's a robot that steals your body, then traps your consciousness in its body. Yeah, what the ever-loving hell? Why? Why is this so terrifying? It's worse than a Springlock failure. At least when you're a Springlock victim, you're dead. Unless you've been possessed prior to getting Springlock. But with this, you're stuck in a robot, watching your body walk away, smiling at you with color-changing eyes. It's messed up, dude. I don't like it. Yeah, it would not be fun. And it would be vicious, and God. This, far worse, alright? Far worse. And we're only at 9. And at 8, Moondrop. Okay, there were plenty of times that Gregory should have been caught in security breach, particularly when Freddy gets grabbed by the Moondrop animatronic right outside of Parts and Service. You're telling me that Moondrop, the daycare attendant, told Vanessa that Freddy was in Parts and Service, but then also didn't mention that we had been in the recharge station that was right next to it, walking with Freddy. Because, like, he knew. He knew we were there. He waved at us while we were taking Freddy away. So like, then she's talking to Freddy as if she doesn't know that him and I have been working together. She's like, oh yeah, your name was coming from the Faz Watch. He's like, oh, that's all Faz Watches. But like, you were literally seen with me. Sure, the daycare attendant isn't able to get us if we're in the recharge station and we had left before she got there, but we clearly aren't invisible to the attendant, and we also are, we've been there. Okay, why does none of this come up? And if it is supposed to come up, why doesn't she just like straight up say, I know you're working with the kid, where the hell is he? No, she's like, oh, are you? Like, dude, come on. What makes this concerning about the daycare attendant, Moondrop specifically, alright, is that he is such a damn creeper, okay? He is So freaking weird. He's like, if you know that guy who always hangs around your school, it's that guy, all right? It's Herbert, the Moondrop daycare attendant. Basically, yeah. Yeah, oh god. And it's 6 doors. You knew that this was going to be on the list, okay? If you've been on this channel at all, you know that I hate the goddamn mother-loving doors in this game. Why do they open when the power is out? That doesn't make sense, okay? If it's an electromagnet, like everyone keeps saying in the comments whenever I bring this up, those require power to turn on. So if anything, it would be costing them power to keep the doors open rather than keep them closed. Gravity does not work in reverse. If the magnet is off when the door is up, it would just fall down. I get that it's supposed to be for gameplay purposes, okay, but what in-universe thing makes this make sense? People say that it's like a safety issue, so like if there's a fire or whatever, you can leave, but that's what windows are for. I am almost positive that there should be a window in that room, and if there's not, that's yet another OSHA violation that they need to address, okay? There's no conceivable way in any reality that the doors should work that way, but they do, and it makes me mad. Like, why would you do this, okay, Scott? Why? Sky Daddy Scott, I'm bringing it back. Why? Some people, like I said, it's a fire safety thing, but like, no. If the building runs out of power, how could the doors open? Electromagnets use power to be on. So like, even if it is a fire thing, how are they keeping them up? I don't get it. Also, if you made it through this far, subscribe. You clearly enjoy the video, or just me going insane. And there's plenty more of that on this channel, no matter which one you liked, so you're welcome. How about doing number 5, being a cop? Being a cop in the FNAF universe must be a horrible idea, because not only are you now a cop, but you're also a cop in the FNAF universe, which for the sake of this list is working at the precinct that failed to capture William Afton, okay? So now the public ridicules you, they don't think you can actually do your job, and you probably got your budget cut so badly that you're maybe able to get 1 squad car, but that's it. 1 squad car for the whole station. Plus, now you gotta deal with multiple arson cases, and the fact that Freddy's keeps coming back and more kids keep going missing. I don't know. There's a weird purple guy walking around that smells bad, but it's like also like a skin condition, so you can't really say anything about it without absolutely destroying the slightest bit of reputation that you have left as an officer in this universe. Like, that's in essence what it's like to be a cop in FNAF. Okay, or what it would realistically be like. Because honestly, these dudes didn't check inside the bleeding, death-smelling animatronics when kids went missing in that building. So, I get it. They're either ridiculed by the public, or you just lose the majority of your IQ once you join up with them. Those are the only 2 explanations. It could be both as well. In at 4, MCI. The missing children's incident is definitely worse than a Springlock failure. I mean, the one failure that we know about that happened in the games only affected 1 person, and a horrible person at that. So I mean, just by sheer numbers alone, the missing children's incident is definitely worse. But not even just that, okay? Those parents must have been in a rough spot. Not only did they lose their kids, but they also have to deal with the incompetence of the in-universe police and the whole plot requirement of Afton getting away with it to actually continue the series. So yeah, like I said, there were literally animatronics leaking mucus and blood that people were comparing to human corpses, and they weren't actually investigated. So, do you know how insanely infuriating that would be? Okay, I'm surprised that Henry was the one to put Afton down and not someone else. Like, yeah, he got springlocked in '93, but that was 7 years after the missing children's incident. Had I been one of those parents, I would not have cared about the prison sentence, okay? And I don't think that anyone would have really judged me for it. I think that they would have thanked me and posted my bail. I mean, I would have lost the trial, but still. Hi, jury. In at 3, reality altering discs. Alright, I mentioned it earlier. Now I'm actually gonna talk about it, because I mention these every chance I get, because these things are absolutely astounding. If you didn't already know, in the original FNAF novel trilogy, it was revealed that the twisted animatronics used discs that changed how others saw them, basically creating an illusionary appearance using sound emitted from that disc that messed with your brain waves, kind of made it like an eye of the beholder situation, I think is how it was explained. However, the mere existence of these discs puts everything we know about the series into question, okay? Like, how do we know if anything we see is ever real? And if FNAF 1 had us hallucinate Golden Freddy and all the It's Me stuff, alright? What if that wasn't us being possessed by our little brother, but maybe that was just the discs messing with our brain? I don't know, okay? What if, like, the actual Pizzaplex, or the pizza place from the first game had been changed by the discs? What if we're just running on a treadmill, kind of like Ready Player One style, and we just have these discs that are changing how we see the world so that we're just really standing still when we're playing through Security Breach? I don't know, okay? Do the animatronics look more rotten than they do normally? I don't know. The sheer existence of these things is absolutely horrifying and far worse than actually a Springlock failure, because at least a Springlock failure, I know if it's real because I'd be dead. That's as plain as it gets. But ultimately, in at number 2, human robots. Again, something I'm sure that people might not think is worse, but hey, the fact that there are robots that are actually able to look and bleed and are passable humans is terrifying, okay? That is a horrifying thing. In the original FNAF novel trilogy, it's revealed that Charlotte, the main protagonist of the books, is in fact one in a series of robots meant to allow her to grow up properly after being killed at an early age. But not only is she a robot, her adult version is also the baby animatronic. Yeah, so Charlotte's robot was also able to look like baby, thanks to the pins on her body, but also able to look like a human that bleeds. Yep, that's terrifying though. That implication is just, who in their right mind would think of that concept, okay? And like, if it was, dude, that's like the fembots from Austin. It's fembots from Austin Powers in the FNAF universe, okay? That's horrible. That's terrifying. That's far worse than a giant yellow rabbit that might kill me, okay? No way. No. Please. If you don't understand why that's terrifying, please explain to me why you don't think it's worse in the comments. And if you don't agree with it, like one of these, explain why Springlock failures are worse in the comments, because this, come on. Finally, in at number 1, No Choice. Maybe he might have had issues killing Afton for whatever reason, despite him literally killing his daughter, but he's fine offing his son when he gets the chance. That's right, Henry Emily. In both fires set by Henry that we see, FNAF 3 and FNAF 6, Michael was there both times, and he didn't care that Michael was in the building. And he actually doesn't give Michael the opportunity to leave in FNAF 6, despite there actually being a way out planned. Yeah, he literally says in his final speech, "Who somehow found this job listing not intended for you. Although there was a way out planned, I have a feeling that's not what you want." I'm sorry, you have a feeling? Bro, come on. I'm not a musician. Stop it. He assumes that we also want to die for whatever reason, and he doesn't actually give us the chance to make that decision for ourselves and just forces us to do it since he doesn't give us a way out. Like, sorry dude, okay, but that's murder. Whether we wanted it or not. It's murder. Come on. Like, that's horrible. Michael wasn't given the choice. Like, I get that he's the son of the man who killed your daughter, and clearly he isn't looking too hot, but at least, like, he seems to be trying to help. So yeah, while it would suck to have my bones replaced with metal while I'm fully functioning and conscious, these things would all suck more. Far worse, okay? And it's 7, Princess Quest. A whole lot of these are going to be from Security Breach, but you know what? That's just because I'm still mad. The whole reason the Princess Quest is a thing in Security Breach was to lock Vanessa away and prevent her from regaining full control over her body. But like, why did he create a failsafe that lets her escape? I don't know, okay? Like, sure, he didn't expect this 14 or 60-year-old that is like the size of a 4-year-old to come through and just like absolutely wipe everything out. But given everything that's happened, come on, learn something. Like, don't have a self-destruct button on the bomb that you plan to use to take out Metropolis. All right, I don't get it. Like, if you want something to work, why give it a way to fail? Maybe that's just the mental problems that I haven't gotten diagnosed yet, but I mean, come on. It's like, it's one of the dumbest things that the series has done at all, and he's lucky that it didn't backfire canonically. Like, seriously, what was the point of having a way to undo your evil plans? It could have just as easily been the canon ending to the story. I don't get it, okay? The fact that it wasn't a canon ending is just pure luck, and I get that it's for the story and for the lore, but like, come on, dude, okay? Come on. Just bury the third machine. Like, god damn it. But no matter what though, isn't the fact that even though it was a stupid idea, the ability to trap someone's brain in a set of arcade machines, isn't that terrifying? Because I think it is. Yeah, it is. And in 6, Michael as a sitter. Okay, now, while we don't really know the details about what's going on inside the Midnight Motorist minigame from FNAF 6, I still think it's safe to say that this is the Afton family, and particularly the Afton males. Seemingly, Michael was babysitting Crying Child while their father was, at work, but Michael was just watching TV, and he wasn't watching his little brother, which allowed his little bro to lock himself in his room, break his window, and then go to the pizza place again, which I'm sure made his dad so angry that when he got back, his son wasn't the nice father that he pretends to be, I'm sure. So yeah, Michael's negligence ends up getting his little brother in a lot of trouble and God knows what else, all because he wanted to watch a show, a drama about a vampire and his baby mama. Cause you know, Immortal and the Restless. Cause yeah, it's worse cause it's a freaking soap opera. Dude, come on. Watch something cool, like Super Pets. I don't know, I just said the first thing that came to mind that was stupid, but also still better than a soap opera. It didn't have Bat Cow, alright? No matter what, it's still stupid, okay? You tell William to go easy on Crying Child, but that's definitely not going to happen, alright? Come on. It's like, it's the same gray shirt. It's definitely Michael. So that's about as clear cut as the series gets. So yeah, hiring Michael to look after your kid is probably worse than dealing with a Springlock failure, especially when it's your other kid, and then you know you gotta. Also, by the way, subscribe because you're halfway there, and if you get Michael as a babysitter, you'll have to be living on a prayer. Okay, terrible pun aside, I apologize, but please subscribe anyway. Halfway through into number 5, not trying. Michael Afton's biggest sin in my mind, ignoring the whole negligence thing, is just the fact that he did nothing. Like sure, he's pretending to be the good guy. Yeah, I'm going after my dad, but really, Michael just seems like he's playing the hero this whole time and not really doing anything. He's like trying to right his father's wrongs. He says that he's going to come find him, but looking at him and looking at what he does, he's not doing it because he's a good person. He's doing it because he feels bad and because of like he's trying to clear his own conscience. He blames himself for getting his brother killed, which subsequently means that anything he does in an effort to make himself feel better about what happened is just that. It's nothing else. Because like in the end, nothing will really bring his little brother back. And like he doesn't actually have the chops to stop his dad. He doesn't. He says he's gonna come find him, but then when he does find him in FNAF 6, he's not the one to burn the place to the ground to stop him. That's Henry. Henry is the only one willing to actually stop William, and it just shows how not serious Michael is about this whole thing. If he really wanted to make sure that William had been stopped, he wouldn't have let himself burn as well, okay? Because like, that's just so he doesn't feel guilty. And I'm sure that he'd rather have a Springlock failure too. Like if he had the choice between doing what he does in the series or getting Springlocked, I bet my ass that he'd have chosen getting Springlocked. And for canon ending. During the true ending of Security Breach, in the Afton, or Burn Trap, or canon, or whatever ending you want to call it, everything we experience is just, there's no way that this lined up. Because even like by protagonist standards, that's insane. We have to fend off Burn Trap's attempts to take control over Freddy by setting him on fire, using what are most likely the mechanisms that Henry used to set the building on fire in FNAF 6. But that's incredibly thoughtful of the ground to not only give out at the perfect moments that we fall into the room we need to be in, but also to form the sinkhole so perfectly that all of the monitors that were set up to the cameras and the vent systems with the fire all still work, okay? These monitors are set up like on tables with buttons that light the fires in the room that the monitor corresponds to. Plus, I mean, like, come on. Again, how are these still working? It's been a long time. These cameras are old as hell. The computers are still somehow working despite being older than my Comtech teacher from grade 12. Not to mention, it fell into a sinkhole. What? Dude, come on. How is all of this working? No way. There's no way in hell. Like, even if you say that like the cameras and the monitors were replaced, why would they replace the fire systems? Dude, bro, come on. Okay, this isn't a Charizard. It's not how that works. Like, my parents had a monitor like this, and it doesn't work now. And we've taken better care of it than, you know, dropping it into a sinkhole. So, yeah. The fact that all this happened is scarier than a Springlock failure, because that means that we were supposed to be there. And I don't like why we were supposed to be there. Getting close to the end in at number 3, Reaper Spring Bonnie. Reaper Spring Bonnie, however, is the opposite of Stage Bonnie. This Reaper variant appears in Final Nights 3 and 4 and is an absolute monstrosity, but it's definitely more terrifying in Final Nights 4, so let's focus on that one. He is 100% the scariest animatronic in this series. In essence, Reaper Spring Bonnie is a nightmare spring trap. He has sharp teeth and a very damaged and withered body. His suit is dark yellow in color. He sports a big purple bow tie on his upper chest, kind of like Glitch Trap. And then, like the other Reaper animatronics, Reaper Spring Bonnie has one pair of hollow, dark eyes that will steal your soul. I added that last part, but it's probably true. In Final Nights 4, his appearance is much more disfigured and gruesome, with sharper teeth, sharper claws, a different jaw, growths on his shoulders resembling fungi, and a kind of a gooier appearance overall. It's like the slime girl from YouTube if she made a FNAF character. He's also missing half of his right ear like Springtrap in FNAF 3, and his suit is more greenish in color this time around to be more like Springtrap. And oh my god, this thing is still terrifying, and it's more terrifying than Springtrap, okay? This is what Springtrap should have been, or honestly, this is what I think like a Nightmare Springtrap would look like, okay? This is like a prototype Burn Trap in my eyes, or the way I'm thinking, like Melt Trap, the next iteration of Afton. But ultimately, in at number 2, Garvey, a psychopathic, cold-blooded killer. He stopped being human long ago. That's how Garvey is described in the extras of Dormitibus, okay? Garvey is the penultimate antagonist in Dormitibus. As a human, he was the man who murdered the missing children and later went on to get trapped in Spring Bonnie, becoming Springtrap. He was then burnt to a permanent death in the Fazbear Frights fire, unlike our William Afton, but that's not only where he differs, because Garvey is more gooey, and he's a more gooey or gory version of Springtrap from FNAF 3. And it's also actually not William Afton, since this game was released before the official name reveal, even before FNAF 4. So yeah, he's Springtrap, but with hardly any exosuit or animatronic casing, whatever you end up wanting to call it. He crawls on all fours and uses his left hand as a foot and his left foot as a hand, like some demon monkey from hell that even Satan doesn't want around, okay? He's like trying to like send it away. He's like, yeah, no, don't. Like, you're seeing pictures, okay? Like, tell me, do you think that it shouldn't be on this list, okay? Because if you're saying that, you're lying. I can tell. And finally, in at number 1, you. Spoiler alert for a fan game. The fan game, which if I say the name will spoil it, so if you want to avoid spoilers, just go to the bloopers, but like, thanks for watching. But either way, I'll give you the chance to do that. Okay, there we go. That was your chance. You're done. A Shadow Over Freddy's is a FNAF fan game created by Fiznam on Game Jolt. It was released on the 25th of April 2018. And since it was made by the same guy who is currently working on FNAF Plus for the Fazbear Fanverse, it's gonna be good. The gameplay of A Shadow Over Freddy's is a hybrid between a traditional point-and-click game and a free-roaming horror game. The player wakes up to find themselves with no memories in a black and white abandoned Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and is tasked with surviving 5 nights and escaping the restaurant. The player is given a different set of tasks each night and must complete said tasks before 6 AM and without being attacked by any roaming animatronics. However, the ending of this game has you getting trapped in a Springlock suit and left to rot, meaning that you are a Springlock victim, which is probably the scariest victim of them all. I don't know about you, some of you I do because I've seen the comments, but I would rather not get Springlocked. It's also revealed that you are William Afton in this game, but you know what, it's you, so it's good enough for me. And at 10, moisture sensitive. One of the things that I find to be the absolute dumbest thing about not only these damned suits, but also the FNAF series in general, is how stupid it is that the Springlock mechanisms inside the Springlock suits fail with moisture. Sure, it explains why William gets Springlocked because the room was dripping and whatever, the ceiling was leaking, and it makes everyone confused with Crying Child because he was crying. Despite that not being a Springlock failure, everyone thought it was because he was crying and, moisture. But in actual practice, that is a horribly flawed mechanic. Like, if me breathing and sweating is going to make the metal bits snap on me, why would I do it in a hot robotic suit? That seems like a horrible and stupid idea. Like, yes, okay, put me in a hot and sweaty environment that gets me killed if it gets wet. That's not a liability at all. I get sweaty wearing my freaking Doctor Strange costume, okay? Imagine a giant suit full of metal, okay? That would also be heavy as hell to walk around in too, only making the sweating worse. In at 9, designer. You see, there are a decent amount of people that for some reason think that these Springlock suits were made with pure intentions. By William Afton. This kind of goes hand in hand with the idea that William started killing after losing his kids, but we know that that's not the case. Since thanks to the fast facts found in FNAF AR's files, we know that the Funtime animatronics were some of the first ones ever made, and considering the abilities of Baby and her comrades, we know that they were made in order to kill, meaning that even if the Springlock animatronics were the very first animatronics ever, it's reasonable to assume that they were also designed with death in mind, which explains multiple things. But honestly, if William made the Funtimes with death in mind, it's likely that he did the same with the Springlocks, you get me? And if you think that a suit that can snap at a moment's notice and shove pounds of metal, bars, cogs, gears, and chains and more into the same space as your body would be made with pure intentions, you should stop watching these videos and go to a therapist. Seriously. I have a number. In at 8, no bonus. The Springlock mechanism is probably the most intuitive thing that FNAF's world invented. The ability to move robotic parts out of the way enough for a human to fit inside is nuts. And while it may be dangerous, we also drive over 100 kilometers or miles, whatever, per hour in huge metal death boxes, so we can't necessarily complain about it. And while yes, they have their faults, there is nothing compared to the ability to be both animatronic and suit. That's an incredible feat of technology, and I'm sure they play into it with the marketing. Like, I mean, we hear the Foam Guy tapes from FNAF 3 talking about these things, okay? And he never mentions a bonus or anything like that for you risking your life with one of these damn suits. And even if you end up getting Springlocked, there doesn't really seem to be any compensation package for your loved ones. Hell, if you die, you may not even get your severance. Actually, maybe that's why they do it. Your family can file a lawsuit since, you know, you died on the job, but that's a lengthy court battle against a massive company with a serial killer who has yet to be caught at the front lines. It's not really gonna do much good for your fam. So the fact that you don't get a bonus if you get in one of these suits, let alone get Springlocked, no thanks. It's a red flag. Swipe left. In at 7, Shadow Spring Bonnie. Shadow Spring Bonnie is one of the two primary antagonists of Final Nights 2. He is one of the final animatronics in the game. Shadow Spring Bonnie resembles Springtrap, as to be expected when mentioning Springlock suits, but similar to Springtrap, he lacks the suit on his feet and has a majority of his right ear missing. Overall, he has rips, but not any real missing limbs or parts at all, which is a stark contrast to the burnt animatronics in the first 4 nights of this game. His face glows white, which is noticeable when he's in the hallway, but also gives him a more sinister appearance and pushes the something supernatural that most of the Shadow animatronics have, like with Shadow Bonnie from FNAF AR. Shadow Spring Bonnie takes the role of Burnt Freddy and Burnt Foxy on night 5, which means that he's very fast, so the player needs to seal the vent quickly, otherwise you'll get jump scared. He also may appear in the hallway, but if he does, never use your flashlight, otherwise you'll get insta-killed. Instead, you need to inspect his face when he appears there, and if he's twitching, close the door. A rattling sound will be heard so that you know he's left. And the fact that you need to look at his face to see if you're in danger just makes this even scarier, especially considering the fact that most of what you need to do relies on fast reflexes, and then you're just sitting there trying to figure out if he's really twitching or if that's just you going crazy. Not from personal experience, I don't know. What? In at 6, Golden Call. As a human, when alive, Golden Call's name was Kyle. However, now he is a Springlock victim stuck inside a Golden Freddy Springlock suit. Golden Call has the typical rundown Springlock suit vibe, similar to Springtrap. However, this is even more gruesome. His left ear is bent, he has bugs coming out of basically every hole in his body, human eyes are hanging out of the animatronic's eye sockets, he's missing the exosuit on his right foot, and his character is holding a flesh-colored, at least colored, it's probably flesh-made, let's be honest, phone in his right hand that stays stuck to his head via more flesh or like blood tendril strands connecting to the side of his head, okay? It's horrifying. It's a monstrosity. And looking at his age on the wiki, Kyle was only 5 years old when he got Springlocked, which is absolutely nuts and just flat out horrible. So yeah, it's unfortunate. Yikes, this kid could have been the next best Fortnite player. Halfway through in at number 5, Grim Chica. The first Springlock victim in the Final Nights series, Grim Chica is the primary antagonist in Final Nights 3 Nightmares Awaken. Unlike the others though, she is not a Reaper animatronic. Grim Chica holds a strong appearance to the Springlock suits on the poster in the Night 3 cutscene, but her face plates are very hard to spot. She is also almost entirely purple. The glowing accents inside her suit resemble a human corpse. She lacks a bib unlike the original Chica, and overall her body is very slim like the original toy Chica, except for her hips, which appear to be much wider, which is making me all sorts of confused. And she lacks shoulders or upper arms, with her forearms protruding from her armpits. So yeah, not confused anymore. Grim Chica is also revealed to be a Springlock victim in the museum level, saying, quote, a victim of a Springlock failure, forever forced to haunt the suit she was wearing, now being manipulated by your sister and mother, tried spray on tan, still very pale. Why is this relatable to me? Why are these two, the two Springlock victims from Final Nights 3 so relatable? No matter what I'll do, I'm always gonna be pasty, and you know what, I'm okay with that. However, I did rank this above Grim Fredbear because it's Chica. And look at how they massacred my baby. Oh man, I'm sorry, mommy. These transgressions will not be accepted. In at 4, Am I Real? Am I Real, also known as Cake Bear, is presumably the primary and most recurring antagonist in Dormitibus. Am I Real has two different forms. His first form is Cake Bear, and Cake Bear's design originated from the Save Him minigame, where he delivered cake to children while someone is being killed outside. He's the predecessor to both Fredbear and Freddy Fazbear, but Cake Bear is a brown bear animatronic that also acts as a Springlock suit that appears in most of the main Nights. Although they look slightly similar, the only similarities it really has to Freddy is that they both possess a top hat, are brown, have blue eyes, and are a bear, which I mean, I guess is the whole character. Am I Real's second form is the form that resembles Springtrap. This form has a green color, much like Springtrap does, and actually contains human remains. Great. His right eye socket has gotten bigger on the side, and there's a big hole that can be seen on the right side of his head. His top hat has received some withering, because you know, it has a corpse inside. His lower jaw is slanted and worn down. He doesn't have it's not circular like Cake Bear's. He has a sizable hole in the right side of his torso as well, revealing organs. He has rips and tears covering his arms, revealing more human remains, and he just appears to be missing like a finger on his right hand for whatever reason. And you know what? No matter what, it's still terrifying to look at. And of course, 3 out of 10 of these are going to be from Dormitibus, okay? Because have you ever played Dormitibus? Have you seen these guys? They're terrifying. Just wait. Paperwork. One of the worst things for the survivors after a Springlock failure has to be the paperwork that is associated with it, because goddamn. Someone dying in your building is one thing. Someone dying in your building because of something in your building is another, and then add on to that the fact that they were your employee and probably forced into that suit without because of their contract, and you'll be filing reports until you have to retire. Okay, especially because one mistake on those papers means even more paperwork, and I don't really know anyone who likes to do paperwork. Personally, I hate it, but that's also because my ADHD makes me it makes it unbearable for me, honestly. It's even tough to write scripts sometimes, but I mean, eventually I have to, but that's where my brain thrives, you know, in that stressful environment, which is not good for my health. But if it was that kind of paperwork, I would honestly just quit, because there was no way in hell that I would even want to attempt to keep my focus on that when I can just scroll through TikTok or YouTube instead. So yeah, no thanks. But ultimately, in at number 2, replaced. Oh yeah, don't forget your bones being replaced with metal ones. Yeah, sure, there's surgery for people who need repairs or replacements, okay? I think hip replacements are probably the most common actually. However, those have whole processes behind them to ensure a fast recovery and, you know, survival, not being infected. All of a sudden being shoved full of metal bones where normal ones used to be, that's a guaranteed infection at the very least, especially considering how, you know, your normal bones have to go somewhere else. And whether they're just crushed and then spread out inside you or just pushed out the other side, you're going to be in a hell of a lot of pain. Plus, you know, probably not alive, which I guess is a good thing, since you won't really have to deal with the intense pain for too long, hopefully. But this actually makes me think, if you replace all of your bones with metal ones, are you still you? Is this like a Ship of Theseus moment? Am I about to have a WandaVision finale? Or are we just our brain? And if we are our brain, does that mean that if we have a brain transplant, do we become another person despite it still being my body? And does that mean that we're just a brain piloting a bone mech with meat armor? Oh no, existential crisis! And finally, in at number 1, death. I mean, don't get me wrong, okay? But the worst thing about a Springlock failure has to be the whole death part, right? Ignore my mumbling. I mean, honestly, okay, it's obviously not for some of you, given the whole comments thing earlier, but the only reason you wouldn't die in a Springlock suit is because you're a main character and need to be around for the story, and then you're just in agonizing pain for the rest of your life. Yeah, the only people who have survived a Springlock failure, well, confirmed, is William. So, yeah, and you know, he's like the main antagonist of the game and was only able to survive since the spirit of a victim was keeping him alive. And in the books, William also ended up getting Springlocked before, but then got out of the suit, since Dave Miller, who is revealed to be William, has scars from a previous Springlock failure from before he becomes Springtrap in the books. So the only one who can ever really survive seems to be William, and he's survived it twice. Anyone else is boned, and personally I'd rather not die by having millions of small metal bits and several dozen large ones shoved into my body, trying to replace my body. I would rather die peacefully in my sleep with Chica's hand around my throat. And it's 7 required. The Springlock suits themselves are an occupational hazard that they didn't really need to create. Like, these things are hella deadly, and both William and Henry allow for their employees to wear them. Like, goddamn, okay? Just make a separate suit for the animatronic characters, for the employees, okay? Like, the people who run your business. You know, they are the ones who make you the money, so, you know, they don't end up dying from robotic parts replacing their internal organs. OSHA would have been all over these goddamn suits if it was real in this universe, but apparently I guess it's not. And honestly, it's probably required by your contract to wear these suits at work, and if you refuse, you're probably gonna get fired, especially considering how they started getting ready to fire Jeremy because he saw Glitch Trap in Help Wanted. So why wouldn't they fire you for not wearing your suit if it's in your contract? Even if you claim it was to protect your life, they'd find another reason that you couldn't really fight against, so. Especially, you know, when a serial killer is the CEO. And its 6 implications. Now, while the term Springlock is used in real life, it's totally different from the actual FNAF mechanism. I'm certain most of you got the whole Springlocks are real line from Springlocks and You, How Not to Die Remastered. It's a thread on the FNAF wiki. However, actual Springlocks are just locks that use springs, okay? From my research, what I gathered is that a Springlock in real life is, in simplest terms, a spring lock. It's like if your front door's deadbolt was on a spring. Every other instance talking about real spring locks or just ends up bringing you back or quotes this page, so it's kind of circular logic, okay? You can't use evidence within the thing that you're trying to prove as proof that it is real. It's like plugging a power bar into itself. It doesn't work. You can't use the same article to prove that Springlocks are real, okay? Because they're not. At least their game form isn't. But if the Springlock failure was real, I think the implications of, like, all of this being real in general is like one of the worst things. You get it? Like, it's definitely in the top 10. Get it? It's a little meta content joke for you because this is a top 10 list. It's in the top 10. Halfway through into number 5, comments. I've mentioned this in previous videos, mostly to explain why there won't ever be an actual real FNAF restaurant that you'll be able to walk into, and it still remains true since we're only getting a virtual diner that you can only order online. However, I think that one of the worst things still, and especially when it comes to these suits, is the goddamn comments about them. You want to know a comment that I saw yesterday? Well, yesterday for me as I was writing this, Wednesday for you. Okay, I saw someone say that they want to be Springlocked. What? Why? Why would you want to be Springlocked? Do you know how messed up that is? You're saying that you want to be killed by this thing? Because there's some hotlines that you should call. Like, why on sweet heaven's earth would you want to be Springlocked? Do you know how absolutely agonizingly painful that would be? That would be one of the worst things imaginable, okay? Holy sweet Lord baby Jesus W. Christ. That would be one of the worst ways to go, if not the worst way. At least, like, as far as, like, actually could happen goes, I think, at least, okay? Because, like, a volcano would suck, but it's a bit unrealistic. It's a bad idea, okay? Stop doing this. Stop saying this. Okay, talk to a doctor.
Number 2, the Bite of 83. Definitely among the most memorable Springlock failures is the Bite of 83. Now some of you are gonna say, Amanda, this is not a Springlock failure. There was no one in that suit that we know of, which sure. But still, it's a Springlock suit and it failed, so I'm counting it. Anyways, I feel like the Bite of 83 hasn't been fully confirmed really at all, but many theorize it to be true. many theorize that our theory is true, that we have so far, because this is all we got, alright? We grab all these little Easter eggs and then we do our best to try to figure out what's going on in the narrative. Now, why do we believe that this could even be a Springlock failure? Well, one, the crying child was crying when he was held up to give Fredbear a kiss, which many theorize is the reason the jaws of the animatronic bear clamped down, as a result of the tears making the gears wet and causing a Springlock malfunction. Two, we have been led to believe that Fredbear was a Springlock suit, so that's also why people suspect that the Bite of 83 could also be a Springlock malfunction. Number 1. Multiple. While Shadow Freddy and RWQFS-FASXC may have been debunked as Springlock failure victims by Scott himself, this theory didn't come out of nowhere. In fact, many thought that they were among those generally referred to in FNAF 3 during Phone Guy's recording for night number 4. Here, Phone Guy mentions that the Springlock suits are being discontinued as a result of an unfortunate incident at the sister location involving multiple and simultaneous Springlock failures. Which, I gotta say, it makes sense to me too, because I'm like, what were all these multiple Springlock failures, what does that entail, and how many were there? Oh boy.